Back with another episode of Circle of Trades. I'm Todd Studer, and in studio it is Travis Waldstein, your Surf Heating and Air Conditioning, and Waldstein Plumbing. Good to see you, sir. Good to see that we are, well, do you have a countdown of days until kickoff for the Hawkeye season for football?
It's in the 70s. I don't think it's down to Tristan Wirfs yet, but it's in the 70s, I think, last time I saw. So we're getting close. All I know is, we're not letting Bo Bassett come to the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, so he decommitted. So every Hawkeye wrestling fan in the world is total meltdown. Now, I do think Iowa does need to replace their 2 assistant wrestling coaches, but I'm not sure about the head coach. But the Hawkeye wrestling world's kind of in meltdown right now. So hopefully, it is what it is. When you got 17-year-olds dictating what you're going to do, that's, life is sometimes you have to learn some hard lessons. It is what it is. So.
What is the point to signing a commitment anyway? Because they hold no water. They doesn't matter. I mean, you can honor it and you can still come, but it's, it doesn't seem to mean anything because you can just stop and go somewhere else.
Yeah. It's like the difference between a promise and a guarantee. So, you know what? If you promise, people break promises all the time. If you guarantee something, you can get your ass sued. I mean, that's the my franchise about in 2019. So I'll bring up my wonderful franchise. So
okay.
They had a president named Steve Truitt, which if anybody knows me, knows I have a definite opinion on him, but I'll leave that alone. They decided, their attorneys decided that instead of, they had the ear serve guarantees and we put in writing. And it's like, and I still use the guarantees to these days. If we're going to do something, if I say we're going to do it, we're going to do it. That's how I operate. Well, they came up with the ear serve promise. And if you read this promise, I said, it looks like legalese for, you know what, we're going to promise, but if we break a promise, you can't sue us. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, well, all right, whatever. It's like you do you, but that was something I got for a while. And there's quite a few franchise owners that said this is dumb, but that's why they have attorneys. But then that's why there's certain things my franchise does that this is why I get in trouble. This is why I get in trouble, Todd, because I'm stubborn as maybe stubborn is the word I should use.
You say you get in trouble, but I don't know that there's been actual repercussions from it. It's just you express your opinion and somebody might give you a little pushback, but that's about the end of it, isn't it?
What I've been told is that I'm direct. I don't give them fluff or sunshine, like I said, I have a lot of stuff, if I want to make a point, I'll definitely make a point. It's kind of like if there's lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig, or if the one thing John Deere didn't stand behind, you know what that is, right?
I don't know.
I'm an earth spreader.
Oh yeah.
I'll throw stuff like that out there in the middle of an argument, and they just go, "You just said what?" I said, "Point exactly." So,
well, that's true, and I don't think there's any danger of Travis Waldstein getting named as a diplomat anywhere. That's just not going to happen because you're going to tell people
supervisor. City council. Well, I can't run for city council, but I got to sing and pay taxes. We can rebuild the riverfront. We can do all this other stuff, but I don't have it. We can bring a streetcar, but I got no vote in it. So, it's all good. So, or school board, don't worry. School board, I last about 2 minutes. They'd kick me out. They say, Travis, you're out of here.
Oh, that's a completely different conversation. And, I campaign for you, but there's a reason for it. Anyway,
it's kind of like, if you go back and watch the old reruns, I know we're getting politics here a little bit, but back in 2015 when Trump was running, I saw some reel the other night. They were talking about this. Everybody was mocking Trump back in 2015. Oh, yeah. He's never winning. Barack's all talking stuff, and they're just up till the election time. And then he wins, and everybody that was just been talking shit, excuse my French, was just like, couldn't believe it happened. I mean, it was, I don't know if you would call it, was, what's it called? Not live TV, but what is it?
Reality television.
Reality TV. Reality TV on your screen. So, So it's like Jerry Jones says, Jerry Jones says, all media is good media, even if it's bad. I'm like, I don't know how that works, but
yeah, they say that. I think it takes a really good publicist. to switch that over, which I don't have. So
No.
that's why I have the big white flag with a red cross on it, because I'm Switzerland.
You're in Switzerland. There you
I
go.
do not take sides in anything.
Yeah,
It's
there you go.
the Johnny Carson mentality of media. That's me.
Yeah, well, I will go. I will go. And I was going to say there might be a certain bumper sticker in your car, but I'll leave that alone. So,
Yeah, you probably. Anyway,
oh, it says Atlanta Falcons. That's what it is. Okay, never mind. So.
I don't know why I get grief from you about that, but because I think the last time they played, Atlanta won against Green Bay. So
I don't know. It's something about that 28-3 Super Bowl thing that, you just, it's like, wow.
One day, I think that with enough concentrated therapy, I will get over that. But it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
I sat and watched that fourth quarter like I was watching a train wreck. And
that's pretty much what it was.
I could see it coming, and I couldn't turn away. I mean, what are you going to do? Turn the Super Bowl off with your own team? I can see it coming. And it's,
hey,
I think that Kyle Shanahan has proven that this is kind of how he goes. He can get to the big game, and then it's just can't close the deal.
That's because he wants to throw the ball too much. It just gives the other team too much time. Hey, listen, I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan. Everyone's, how do you become an Edmonton Oilers fan? Listen, I've watched them lose to Florida 2 years ago, 2 years in a row. They probably should have beat Florida last year. This year, Florida, I thought Edmonton would beat Florida, and Florida just steamrolled freaking Edmonton in the Stanley Cup final. And I mean, it's just like, holy cow. So yeah, so I 100% get it. It has, but Edmonton's won 5 Stanley Cups in their history. I don't think the Falcons have won anything. So maybe that's kind of, it's like the Vikings, it's
Well, there's no reason to pour salt in the wound. I really don't see.
Growing up in Minnesota, up in Northwest Iowa, and everybody being freaking Vikings fans, you know what? I can't stand the Minnesota Vikings. So
yeah, well, that should turn you into a Falcons fan after,
It's more fun to be like, hey, Lambeau's going to be the biggest stadium. They just announced this. They negotiated their agreement in Green Bay. Lambeau is going to go to 86,000 people.
Really?
Yes, it's going to be the biggest. It's going to be bigger than Giant Stadium, so it will officially be the biggest stadium in the NFL.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, they'll sell the tickets because the entire state of Wisconsin feels like Green Bay is in their home city.
Pretty much, yeah. Unless you live in like Sheboygan, which is like next to Illinois, or whatever right. Towns that are on the border, and most of them are smart. They're Badger fans too. Who wants to be a Bears fan? I mean, for goodness sakes. So, but we won't talk about that. So,
well, we did actually have a topic that we wanted to cover today, but I'm desperately trying to use my media skills and come up with a good segue to get there, and I can't come up with anything. I can't figure this out.
Well, I listen. I'm stirring the pot. I always do. Now, actually, we talked about leadership in our meeting this morning, okay. and so we'll jump into this. So, stop beating up Todd about his Falcons. So, no, we talked about leadership, and I just put up on the board. I said, what does it mean? What does leadership mean to each one of you? And, when you get 20 different people in the room, well, number one, everyone's like, well, the first two answers are freaking take it, blah, 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 blah. So I said, y'all got to come up with an answer. And so we did. So we talked about leadership. It was kind of interesting, their perspective. I'm going to pull it up on my phone here, because I probably can't hang on here.
Yeah, this in the radio world is what we call dead air.
Yes, it is. So, what? Oh my God, I don't even want to know. Okay, so yeah, so I'll pull this up. So it was actually pretty interesting. Okay. So the leadership. So the thing we talked about, and I'll just kind of read these off. Direction, leadership by example. Don't ask to do what you want to do yourself. That was the number one thing. Everybody's like, oh God, that took like everything it talks about as far as leadership goes. But then we came up with this list and we just said, we're going to talk about it. Each one of you has to take one thing. And I said, next week when we come in, you're going to talk about one thing that you do really well. And then you're going to talk about one thing as far as a leadership skill that you would like to work on and how you would work on it. Um, so of these, I'm going to just read them off on random. Respect, being positive, taking charge, influence, delegate, or as someone else said, divide and conquer. And I'm really good at dividing and conquering, by the way. So I enjoy dividing and conquering. So, mentor, thinking ahead, um, um, put sets the tone to the day. Put goals, how to achieve, willing to teach, role model, on time, which if anybody knows me, I'll be an hour late to my funeral. So once at 10, just call it 11. Just show up at 11. You won't miss anything. So calm and stressful situations, communication, initiative, problem solving, dedication, and my favorite Navy one of all time, do as they say, not as I do. That was my response when they made me the safety officer of my shop when I was in the Navy, and I had like a scar on my forehead. I cut myself a couple times on that flight line on the aircraft carrier, and it had I didn't stitch anything up because I hate going to see the doctors on the boat. I'd rather duct tape it than deal with it. Um, so that's so that was kind of what we came up with this morning.
Can I play devil's advocate for a second here?
Yes.
That's a lot of buzzwords. I don't know that it means anything.
Well, that depends on how your perspective. So
yeah, I mean, because there's certain things, and here's the thing too, when it comes to leadership, and I'll just use you for a therapy session. I'm not good at it.
Oh, right, leadership.
No, you know that. Well, at my previous job, when I tried to work for somebody else, I couldn't do it. I couldn't work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Because when something was happening that I knew was wrong, and I had people that were under me that were being taught the wrong way, I never was able to effectively counter that. And in the end, it made life very hard for the people that were under me because they're getting conflicting messages and no real and so that's I think that was my failure with the whole thing. And leadership is tough. It's it's about, I believe, taking care of those underneath you before I take care of myself. And I didn't do a good job of that. And that's something that I'm working on. So I'm hoping that you give me some great tips here, because eventually I hope my business grows to the point where we can give this another shot.
Yeah. Well, here's one of the things I would say about leadership. And listen, there's some things I'm not great about thinking ahead, or I'm horrible at time. I'd be the first one to tell you that. But by God, if you set a meeting with me and you're 1 minute late, I'll freaking hammer you for it. So if I have to be on time, you better be on time. So I'm terrible about that. To me, sometimes being a leader is not always being the popular one. Sometimes, you have to, in my mind, when you talk leadership, you have to be one. I agree with setting the tone for the business, taking charge, but what taking charge for my business might look a whole lot different than taking charge for a social media company. You have to have a vision. You have to know where you want to go, and then you want to sit there and you want to plan how to get from, point A to point B, or point B to point Z, whatever the point is. What is your end goal? And that your end goal could always be a moving target. And if you're a leader and that's what you're wanting to do, you have to figure out how you want to hit that end goal. And you also have to have people in place that they don't have to agree 100%. I don't want everybody to agree with me. I don't, because we need people with different opinions, because different opinions is kind of like getting beaten. So you learn more sometimes from someone's other, what the opposite thinks than what your opinion is. You may not like it, but that's how people have a tendency to learn. Um, so to me, having direction and taking something and having an idea, and then how do you cultivate that idea? There's a lot involved with it. The what I said is anybody in here could be in my shop or anywhere could be a leader. Usually if they're a leader, my opinion is it's something they're familiar with. But sometimes to make them become more of a leader or more responsible in that role is they have to learn how to do it. Apprenticeship's a great example. You want to be a technician, but you don't know how to do it. Well, you want to be good at your job. You want to be the expert. You want to be the go-to person. You got to put the time in. You got to put the time in the classroom. You got to put time in there. With what you're talking about with your business, my thought process is, your business is you're an it. We talked about being. I don't know who's from White Plains, New York, but I am not picking up that phone. So I'm not interested.
I got one of those this morning from Plano, Texas.
Yeah. Well, don't answer that one. It might be neighborly calling.
It went to voicemail, and the voicemail was in Spanish. And
you had to put on your Google Translate, right? So you can
understand it. I did put it on Google Translate, and I found out that this was somebody who claimed they were from the website Redfin and wanted to know whether or not they could hire me to do some painting. How long has it been since I had a painting business?
A little while. Quite a while.
Yeah, a little while. So, I've learned that. Yeah, don't answer those.
Yeah, White Plains, New York. No, I'm not interested. So, some guy asked me the other day. I know we're gonna have to tangent. I said, "You own a house on South Main Street. You want to buy a warranty?" I said, "Number one, I didn't own it. Number two, it's not a house. It's not a business. Number three, remove me from your list." I might have been a little bit more straightforward than that when I said that, and I think before I got through with the "take me off your list," he hung up on me. So I got the point across. Now back to leadership, though. So if we're talking about anybody, I think in a room can be a leader in their own way. It sometimes it's a simple. I've heard drill sergeants say, you get up and you make your bed in the morning. It's a sense of accomplishment. You've done something for a day, and and if you're in the Navy or Marine Corps or Army or Air Force, and you're going through boot camp, sometimes that's a very basic as far as leadership. You're able to accomplish something. I think even at the lowest level, you can have leadership, but you have to develop. Leadership for me is going to look different than for anybody else. What the vision is. How do you get there? I mean, I'll call it for what it is. I'll jump back into the politics for a little bit. I know Brandon Garrett, chief of staff for Matt Walsh, has this vision for, the trolley and the River golf course and whatever. He's got a vision. He's helped the mayor and tried to speed off of that deal. A lot of people don't agree with that. I get it, and there's two sides of their story. But leaders are going to take unpopular positions. The current president of the United States has done some things that, he's a leader that the other side doesn't like, and they go off. The previous 2-3 presidents, the same thing. You can go back in history. You're not going to win a popularity contest as a leader, but you do. My feeling is you do what you feel is best with any given situation, whatever it is you're managing or whatever it is you're in control of. And you just, at the end of the day, if you did things right, if you did things right, things will take care of themselves. If things didn't go right, then things will go to hell in a handbasket. But if you do nothing, a lot of times that's, if you do nothing or if you get pushed over, then where's the leadership there? You're just getting pushed around. And to me, that's not leadership. That's not taking charge. And so, that's my perspective on it. You can look at it a lot of different ways. Look at farmers. Farmer gets up every day, especially if it does livestock, has to feed the hogs, got to, or tend the cattle, do the stuff they have to do. Why they do it? Because, there's people need to be able to eat. They need to be able to, live whatever. And that's part of the process. Is it easy? No. Is getting up 7 days a week and doing chores every day sucks? But guess what? They're livestock. You don't get to take the weekend off if you're a farmer. That's how it is. Railroad, same thing, 7 days a week. So, like I said, their leadership presents itself in a lot of different ways until you really sit down, you kind of take a look at it.
Let me ask you this then, Travis. If
Mm-hmm.
you have an employee,
Mm-hmm.
would you rather they made a wrong decision or no decision?
I would rather have them make a wrong decision. I mean, no decision is almost worse. It's kind of like flopping in the wind. I'll bring back a great example. I'm an Iowa fan, so Brian Ferentz. That's all I got to say. Brian Ferentz. They flopped him around for the win. He had the worst offense in the country for 2 years. And I love Kirk Ferentz to death. I think he's a great football coach. I know not everybody agrees with that assessment, but you've been in Iowa 26 years. You won a lot of football games, but you went out on a limb for your son. And I mean, I don't care if it's the employee, but particularly your son, and he's failing, and listen, no one wants to admit when their kids failed. It happens in life. My kid lost in the wrestling tournament, in senior year in high school. He got hurt. Things happen, and their kid, they didn't win the national programming contest. They finished second in the country as a junior. I mean, things happen, but sometimes you have to make the hard decision. And the thing he did is he sat there with Brian and he did nothing. And he had an athletic director that did nothing. Well, finally, they got a new athletic director. The coach didn't want to do something. They wanted to keep the status quo. And finally, the athletic director got enough stones, Beth Getz, and fired Brian Ferentz. Well, you know what? It needed to happen for the fan base. It needed to happen so people could move forward because it was this black cloud that was hanging over the program. So, was it the right decision to run? In my opinion, it's the wrong decision that they did nothing. It honks some people off that she did it the way she did it, but you know what? That's what leaders do. And you're not going to make everybody happy. It's not politically correct, but there's a reason she's getting paid as athletic director of Iowa, and that's to make tough decisions. And I think with any business, anything like that, I hate firing people. I do not enjoy it. But if I have to make decisions on people in my business, if I've got someone that's on the edge, what I will tell them is, what I will do is I will sleep on it for overnight. And if I toss and turn in the night and I don't sleep well with the decision, then I'll come back and I'll reevaluate and I will pull the person in. We're going to talk about the situation, what's going on. But if it's something to where I sleep like a baby and I wake up and it's like, okay, the decision's been made, then it's a pretty easy decision to make, But when you have to let people go, which I don't like to do, and I don't have to do that often, but when you do, it's not fun. It's the worst part of business. But as a friend of mine once said, he lives in Council Bluffs, and he may or may not own a couple car washes. I don't know. He says, if you can't change people, unfortunately, you have to change people. And I think that's a very true statement. I mean, people have to be willing to change. They have to be willing to grow. They have to be willing to adapt.
All that sounds fair. I think that to have a successful company, that you need to have uh, not just employees, staff, team members, whatever you want to call them, that have the knowledge to do their job, but they also need to have the freedom, I think, to do their job. If the people that are working under you know that they have the power to make a decision and then they don't make it, now you've really got an issue.
Well, that's where competence, that's where training comes in. And hopefully by doing stuff repetitively over and over, they get confidence. And once they get confidence, they start feeling better about the whole situation. I think that's a huge part to to any business. You know, if you've got 30 years in doing something, you're pretty confident, and hopefully you're competent. You know, if you've been in business for any time, even if a business has failed, it doesn't mean you're not competent. Sometimes businesses fail. It happens. You know, the economy turns, the government changed regulations, things happen that you've got zero control over. Um, you know, so I think that is something, you know, that you deal with in life. But yeah, you have to train, you have to work with your people. At the end of the day, we're in a customer service business. We're about taking care of customers and their problems. Like I said, you know, that's what we do. I mean, you know, we're in HVAC, we're in plumbing, we do this stuff. You know, we're all in the customer service business at the end of the day. You know, it's about taking care of the customers, their needs, making sure the problems are getting taken care of, you know. And that's another thing as far as leader, make sure that them things are happening. And it's not just because it's a part of business, it's because it's the right thing to do. If I don't have customers, guess what? You know, I don't have a business. There's a reason I don't do marketing. You know, I have paid someone to do my marketing. I said, if I did my marketing, it would be good for about 3 people and I'd be broke. You know, because I don't know marketing, but I'm smart enough to know that there's people that do and I use them.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I listen to a lot of business podcasts all the time. Usually,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm getting ready in the morning, I'm listening to somebody and he's talking about different things. And one of the things that he mentioned, I've never mentioned this to you, and I kind of wanted to get your opinion about what it was that he said. That in business, if you want to have loyal employees, if you can make your dream big enough that their dream fits inside of it,
Mm-hmm.
then because that's what he says he does, and he has people that stay with him for a long time. I was
Mm-hmm.
curious about what your thoughts were about that.
Oh, I don't disagree with that at all. I think that's very true. You know, it can't all be about Travis Kyle Wallstein. It can't all be about Hayden Howard Wallstein. I mean, it can't, you know, as we talked, we're going to talk about our financials next week in front of the group because I believe in doing that. There's a lot of business owners like, what? You're going to, no, this is kind of, we want to be open and transparent about because every dollar that the company brings in for revenue is because of somebody here that's doing a job.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they're making a wage, they're doing this. And of course, we got expenses going on. And I really feel that, you know, is an employee, you know, you deserve to know. You need to deserve what kind of revenue are you bringing in? What is it that you're doing that's helping the overall picture? I feel that's very important for people to know because you know what you make an hour, what you're able to do for your family is directly a result of the stuff. And we do here. People want to be protected. People want to be able to grow. I'm not naive enough to think that you know some of the people I have working for me now may have their own shop in 5 years. It might happen. You know, that's okay. I really don't have an issue with that. You know, I would much rather have a competent and technical person who wants to put their own shelf out and do their own thing. And that's the reason I did. I didn't want to answer to other people that wants to do it their way. But hopefully with the stuff what we've teach them and taught them and understand there's a lot involved with running business. You know, so 100% agree with it. And if that's their vision, maybe their vision is to own a yacht. Maybe their vision is to have muscle cars. I don't know. You know, I kind of like antique tractors myself, but you know, like I said, there's only 24 hours a day and I don't have much time to mess with that kind of stuff. But,
You don't want
um,
one of those, otherwise your wife's garden is going to get a lot bigger.
oh, yeah, yeah, don't get me going on that. But no, in all seriousness, no, you got to, you know, I hate this term. What big, hairy, audacious goal? I says, well, okay, you know, I said, you know, I remember the first time I heard it, I said, that's like the dumbest thing ever. It's like, okay, but everybody has goals, everybody has dreams. You know, I've sitting kind of on a board. Um, so I asked, I said, what are people's favorite thing to do in their own time? You know, one is, you know, working on cars, another one's drinking beer, another one's liking movies and basketball and playing with his daughter, and then video games, and then crocheting, and then doggy time, and then supposedly the gun range, but the person that put that can't shoot for shit. But did I say that out loud? So, but people have stuff that they want to do outside of work, and they have dreams. They have lives outside of work. And believe me, I understand better than anybody. That's why I don't work guys 70 hours a week. I just if people want to have family time in life, and I've always been very conscious of that. Yeah, I want to make money. Don't get me wrong, but if you're taken away from family time, there are other people's family time, and you're not respectful of that. No, I still have a business to run. I ask people if they're going to want to do something major, especially this time of year. I'd like to have a 30-day notice before they go on vacation so we can plan accordingly. If you come in and drop it off in a week's notice, I'm probably going to say no. Poor planning your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. But that being said, I want my guys to be able to, hey, my daughter wants to go to Yosemite, or they want to go to, Grand Canyon, or they want to go to Silver Dollar City, or, heaven forbid they want to go to Disney World. So my cousin wanted to go down to Disney World. So I'm not, I'll just leave it this way. I'm a Looney Tunes guy. I'll just leave it at that. So.
Yeah, we can have a discussion of when they're going to create a Looney Tunes amusement park.
Oh, I wish they would. It'd be fantastic. I guess probably for close they got Universal Studios. So, yeah. You're not gonna get me to Disney World. Although my wife told me in 2 years I'm gonna have to. I said I think I'm just gonna find the bar. I'll be there for a week. If you guys go have time, wait around.
There is places that you can drink at Epcot. So that I do know. I also know that, well, because I've been to Disney more than once.
Unfortunately.
And the last time that I took my son, there was somebody that had brought a 6-pack of Coors in his backpack, and he did not make it past security.
There's a guy. I'll tell you this story. There's a guy. Well, last time I went down there, this was in 2019. That's why I signed my franchise renewal. I said, if I'm going to resign this because I didn't want to sign it, I'm going to sign it in the most miserable place on earth. And I did. So there you go. There's my perspective on Disney. Sorry if you disagree. But no, this guy walked around, gave his tour, worked there. Oh, yeah. He had 2 bottles of Jack Fire, and he was drinking it straight. He was an employee there.
Really?
I'm like, dude, I mean, I could hand him my alcohol, but I mean, this was just like he had 2 pint bottles and they were gone within 2 hours, and he had 2 more he went and picked up in his office. I thought, whoa.
Well, I've actually witnessed this, and I don't know why we're talking about this, but I witnessed some younger people, I don't know if they were over 21 or not, that had snuck vodka in a water bottle. Because you can take water bottles in, you can put them in your backpack, and they'll just look, oh, here's water bottles. And so if it's actually vodka that's inside of them, they don't open them to check.
Yeah. So, I accuse Jane of doing that all the time. She works in her office. I think she's got a bottle of vodka right next to her coffee. That's why I keep telling her. So that you can see how I told you, I don't know where the conversations go when we start talking. The whole idea was to have a discussion on leadership, and now we're talking about sneaking alcohol into Disney. So, and by the way, that a good leader wouldn't do that. There you go. I've just wrapped it all in. I just put a bow on it. There you go. So, but anyway, I know this. Like I said, I've had clients that want to get my good graces of my leadership, and they bring me Bush Light cookie dough. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
They know you.
Well, they're not wrong. So yeah, that's why I have this. That's why I have this temple here. So I did find out the other day that if you've got 5 inches of fat, it's very likely that you can get shot and it won't hurt any vital organs.
So you've actually made yourself bulletproof, is what you're saying?
Pretty much, yeah. So literally 6 feet tall and bulletproof. So there you go. So there you go. Yeah, see, there you go. That there you go. That's your 30-second spot for the next podcast.
I suppose it would depend on what the caliber is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's probably very true.
Maybe a 22, but if you get hit with a 44, I'm pretty sure that thing's still going through you.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, they say supposedly, well, maybe they'll just, distract it, have it go another direction. So, I'm like, I feel
You're
pretty
trying
good.
to
I felt great knowing that. It's like, wow, there is a positive to this whole deal. My wife's just probably shaking her head, going, "Really, Travis, you went there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." So, but
Well, look at the positive side. That means your wife's watching your podcast.
that's right. Well, yeah, there you go. So, well, like she said, like she told me if I wasn't married to her, she probably wouldn't be friends with me on Facebook. So, which I can't say is I necessarily blame her, but so.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with that, but
Yeah, it's
there. I think that there's a compliment in there somewhere. I'm looking for it.
when you figure it out, call me, let me know. I'll be curious. So,
All right, my man. Always great to talk to you, and looking forward to the next time. And a big thank you to you for watching and listening to this episode of Circle of Trades. We'll be back very soon with another installment. Till then, take care.